Now, has there been an effort made to centralize authority in some way, or is this really beyond possibility in terms of Pakistani government authority being extended into these tribal areas?
I think a serious effort was never made. And the reason was that these Pashtuns were generally, we are talking about 1940s, 50s, 60s, generally peaceful. They were well armed because it is a part of the Pashtun culture from day one to have a weapon. For instance, if this example will be relevant, in case of their kids, they will not be looking forward to the day their kid will start talking or the first word that he or she will utter. But they are more concerned about the day their kid or son, in most cases, will be able to handle a gun. And this is part of the culture. This is part of the honor. So government never tried, because of lack of resources, because of lack of democracy, because military dictators started taking over the country. These were the factors which never, number one, provided space for the federal state to go there. Secondly, because of lack of democracy, the interests of the ordinary people, I would say unfortunately, were never at the core of public policy. So nobody perhaps thought about it. And these Pashtuns were helpful. If Pakistan had a problem with India, they would come up as volunteers and go and fight. If Pakistan would need anything like in the 1980s to fight the Soviet Union, which the Western world together with Pakistan fought, these were the people, and they deserve this credit. I mean, if we just for a minute leave the present scenario and look at 1980s, these were the people who who accepted first warriors from all around the world, who were sent in by the Western world. There was a well-designed, choreographed policy, and then they went fought the Soviets. They provided guest houses to all the militants, and at that time nobody realized that what we are getting into, because these are warriors who have accepted these militants from Morocco, Yemen, Syria, you name a country in the Muslim world. So they had acted as those who would be very hospitable. So this area of about 3.5 million people acted in aid of the Pakistani state always. So nobody thought that we need to go and try to enforce our writ.
Now, you served as a police official in this area in the mid to late 90s, which is a period of time after the Afghan war is over, but where the impact of having hosted these foreign troops and so on has been felt in the regions. And it's also a time before 2001, September 11th, when bin Laden is beginning to set up camp in Afghanistan, but in areas that are related to the tribal regions of Pakistan. What was your perception of the changes in the local culture, either in terms of, this impact of a militarization or the impact of this Talibanization, which is a much more recent coinage for what's happening in Pakistan? How was the local culture influenced by these kinds of recent events in its own local history?
I think this is a very important question, and a very important dynamic has taken place there. I had served in Northwest Frontier Province, which I had framed as a settled area, which is somewhat of an urban area, but it was very close to the tribal area. This federally administered tribal areas, these 7 semi-autonomous agencies, and I had a chance to go to these agencies many a times. What I remember is that the new dynamic was a change from what I call, and which I'll just explain also, from hujra to mosque. The word hujra, H-U-G-R-A, hujra was the traditional drawing room of a Pashtun Malik or an ordinary person, where in the evening they would sit and chat, if there's any mediation needed, any conflict resolution, meeting of friends. That was the place where policy was made, issues were discussed, and that was the center of their political activity, social activity. During this Afghan war of the 1980s, because a religious element had come into this, a transition took place from this hujra to the mosque. Mosque, I have all the respect for the mosque, and I think that's a sacred place like any other religious institution. But in this area, the mosque was taken over by those militants or warriors or whatever name we would like to give them, fundamentalists, in certain cases terrorists, who took over the command and control of the mosque. Why? Because number one, they had no other houses or places to go to. Secondly, this was a platform to preach what they wanted to preach. So this shift at that time in mid-1990s was taking place. I think now it is complete, but this shift would explain. Secondly, because of the Afghan war and the role of the Pakistan military and the Pakistani intelligence and the Western intelligence, these people, Osama bin Laden at that time was one of them, was a player who would receive the guests from abroad, would train them, maybe give them some honorarium, take care of them for a few days in Peshawar city, the capital of Northwest Frontier province, and then tell them, this is the route, this is your handler, you go into Afghanistan, this area you will operate. The area was saw many dozens of Osama bin Ladens, I would say, and they had linkages with the local intelligence, local law enforcement, because local law enforcement and intelligence knew that these are important people who are serving a great purpose. Osama bin Laden, for instance, even when I was there, I had heard when he was living in Peshawar, he would often call on the senior tribal leaders, politicians, also the US consulate in Peshawar. So he was a well-known figure who would meet all these people, because for them he was playing a very crucial role.